Hello everyone, this is Ming Jong. Welcome to today's market analysis for the S&P 500 in minutes futures. That's for the session of 24th of July. So in this video, I am going to show you the market recap on the last session, plus a trade review in the M3 timeframe, which I will include the entry, exits, and the rationale behind. And that trade actually initiated during the US session. And the trade was based on a spring of the non-regular trading hours low and followed by a reversal. All right, so going forward, I will cover the bias, the key levels, and also potential setup for the session later. All right, so let's just get started. So earlier on today, there was a news regarding the China ordered US to close its consulate in Chengdu as a retaliation to US demand China to close its consulate in the Houston. So that actually triggered a swing down. You can see it in this H1 time frame. So you can see that there's a swing down here. So currently it actually shows its weakness in the S&P 500. But before I dive into H1, maybe I just cover the daily time frame first, because yesterday was pretty interesting session, and we see that this kind of the key reversal bar, or the the bearish engulfing bar with a spike of the supply, it looks very bearish actually, because you can see that this bearish bar actually just engulfed the prior session, these two sessions, and closed at the low. And another thing that stands out to me definitely is this kind of the uptrust section. So we have kind of like a false breakout uptrust and then break back into this trading range here. So would it trigger a sell-off, or at least a meaningful correction back to this range, or at least a test of this low or low here? So I think this is something that we need to pay close attention to, especially after the significant or climatic run up in the Nasdaq, and followed by this kind of the uptrust action. So I think this is something that we definitely are very interested. And let me just get down to the H1 time frame, and we can have a very clearer look here. All right. So this is a H1 time frame for the S&P 500. We can see that yesterday the sell-off actually happened on this bar here. I believe it's around 12 o'clock my time. And you can see that it's relatively sharp. But despite having this kind of the sell-off, we have seen definitely supply picking up at here, and definitely this bar as well. But similarly, you can see that we have a demand tail as well. So definitely on these two bars, there are quite a lot of the demand here. So this is some of the bullish sign. But the follow through after the session wasn't that impressive, because you can see that clearly that this is the very weak rally. And in fact, it just couldn't recover the losses, or even maybe 1/3 of this bar here. So this is the significant bar to the downside. And you can see that the rally during the Asian session is pretty much mediocre, something like this. And eventually we just fail, and followed by the sell off again. All right. So let me just get down to M3 time frame for a trade review. But before I do that, I want to talk about my bias for yesterday video. So if you recall it, I think my bias was long, especially after a test of this breakout bar. So there can present some kind of the long opportunity. And you can see that we have a kind of like a big bearish bar breakdown here. So definitely, I think this bar levels was out. So the subsequent level was definitely at the non-regular trading hours low. So I actually initiated a long trade just based on this level at a non-RTH low. So let me just get down to the M3 time frame, and just to show you the trades, one trades, and I think there are one more trades or a few more potential trades after the obvious sign produced. All right, so let me just drag back to the time frame here. So you can see that I have already put in a few circle as my entry and exit. Pretty much this wasn't a profitable trade. In fact, I think it just barely break even. So the trading plan was actually on a long side because my anticipation was a test of the breakout bar near around 3267. I think that could be this kind of the breakout to the upside. So, but you can see that just prior to the US opening session, 9:30 my time here, we can see that there's a reaction down here, and it didn't really reacted on the level that I anticipated. So definitely no trade at this level for me. So subsequently, the next level that I pay attention to definitely is the non-RTH low. So is somewhere around 3258. So during the US opening session, you can see that is here, and we have a kind of a rally to test the day high, prior day high here, and then followed by a reaction down. The volume has picked up a little bit here, although not that scary or not that threatening, but still the supply was relatively high. And if I zoom in a little bit here, you can see it clearer here. So the level that I'm watching was actually 3258.5. And based on this two bar here, we can clearly see that there was some kind of the demand come in on this bar. So that is actually with this kind of the supply spike, and this is lower supply. So with the increasing of the supply level, what we get is actually a demand tail followed by a slightly smaller spread. So suggest the demand was in, and it's just at the right level, which is the non-RTH low. So I actually plan to initiate a long trade after a confirmation, such as to take out this high here, the previous candle high. But you can see that clearly that we didn't really have any kind of the reversal bar here. So in fact, we have another leg down here, sell off, and that's kind of like with a bit of the decreasing of the volume, so a little bit of decreasing here, and we see that the candle spread is actually a bit smaller. The demand tail wasn't that great, but the actual momentum and demand comes in this bar here. So we can see that there is a good demand here, and also we see that the candle close was strong and relatively bullish candle. And this is definitely the first time that we have ever seen out of this downtrend here, small downtrend. And that's why I just initiated my entry as a long entry after the close of this bar. This is quite an aggressive trade because usually I will just wait for another test purely because of the supply level on this reaction down is relatively high here. So I actually anticipated another test here, another reaction as a test of this prior reaction, which actually happened here. So, but anyway, I just prompt a small position here and anticipation of the price to actually move up because I was still relatively bullish. I thought it's just a back test of this, and it could just recover quickly and eventually can at least to test this non-RTH high and also this swing line near about 3284 here. But unfortunately, you can see that there wasn't much upside follow through. In fact, it didn't really touch this prior swing high here. So we have a lower high here, and I just give it another chance because I'm actually anticipated this kind of the reaction as a test of this prior reaction. So that was okay for me. And subsequently, we can see that there was some kind of the struggling and rejection around this area here. So this is the area where there are some rejection. So there's an inability to move up and actually even commit above this swing high here. So definitely I start to change my bias to a bit bearish because there is just not enough force or momentum to push the price up. And eventually we can see that it just had a localized breakdown here. So I just exited my trade after this localized breakdown bar here, after the close of this bar here. So my entry was here and exit is here. It's pretty close, and I'll call it a break-even trade. But anyway, it's pretty late on my side. I think it's around 12 o'clock here. So definitely just don't want to stay any longer. Just went to bed. But I think there was definitely a great potential trade just right after this segment here. You can see that out of this non-RTH low, as I annotated on this dotted line here at around 3259 or 58, we have this kind of the move down. So this is the first reaction, and then we have kind of like a smaller down wave, and this is the reaction that actually stands out. Even though it didn't really create any, I think, lower low, it's kind of like pretty much even. But in order to trade it to the downside, what I would like to see is actually this kind of the weak rally up. So this is the inability to rally, and look at what where the candle actually stopped. It's pretty much just very close to this non-RTH low here. So it's just kind of like a breakdown and then followed by a test of this non-RTH low as a resistance, and then followed by this kind of the reversal bar. So that could be a short entry here after the close of this bar, or if you want to wait for more confirmation, then definitely I think this is another breakout trade to the downside. So I think this could be quite a nice trade to write it down, although you might need to wait for a bit here, and only until this point then the sell-off begin. So I think this is the trade review. So pretty much that didn't really anticipate this kind of the sell-off happen at about 1 a.m. here. So anyway, let me just get back to the H1 time frame to talk about the current situation. So today's price action was generally bearish, especially after the news regarding the China or the US to close its consulate in Chengdu come out. And what we saw earlier on is this kind of the sell-off. Although the price recovered a little bit here, but I think in general we're still in a short-term downtrend here. As you can see, that is pretty much within this down channel here. And if we take a zoom out view here, one thing that I would like pretty much I will run attention is actually the level. So if you recorded in maybe in a few of my video or one of my video, I do talk about potential, or actually is the supply absorption area. So this is supply absorption, and this is another supply absorption. So definitely these two areas are very important. It will actually provide support for S&P 500. So as long as it is still above the level, first level that I'm watching, definitely I think is the pink line or the axis line at 3180 to around 3190. And as long as it's still above that, I think we are still bullish. I still stand with my bullish view because it still has a chance to actually test it and then bounce back up and to just trend higher. But if it fails at this level, then definitely subsequent level is slightly below. I think this is around 3105 or 3120. But anyway, it's somewhere around there that could provide some kind of the support as well. But for the short term wise, as long as it's still above 3180 to 90, which is this level here, then I definitely stand as a bullish bias. And for the current development, what I actually anticipate is actually some kind of the push down to test the obvious level at 3180 or 90. So that's the level I'm watching. And there is a potential long opportunities if the price can bounce up from here. So that could become quite a nice long entry. And for the short entry, definitely, I think if we can't overcome the level at around 3230, then definitely this kind of the trade, like bouncing up, show some kind of the rejection, then that could become a short trade as well. So pretty much either long or short at the moment is still tradable. So for the immediate resistance level that I'm watching, definitely the first level is this 3230 level. Is the kind of like the axis line. Previously was a resistance and become a support here. Resistance, 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 support, support, and just see some kind of the price interaction here. So 3230 is definitely a level to watch. And subsequently is this kind of the resistance, swing high resistance at 3270. And for the immediate support level, definitely do watch out for this 3180 to 3190 as a first level of defense, because this is the still the absorption area. So I actually expect some kind of the support will form at this area here. All right. So talk about the key levels, and I talk about the potential trade setup. And I think for the buyers today, I'm kind of like, well, it's bearish definitely, but even though even that the bearish bias, I think either the long or short side is still tradable. All right, so this is the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it and get something out from the video. If you like it, just click like and also hover to my name or picture to follow me. Do remember to subscribe to my channel so that you get instant notification of my future video ideas. And as usual, if you have any kind of the comments, suggestions, or questions, or any trade ideas you'd like me to have a look, feel free to comment it below. I will definitely reply to you. Thanks for watching. I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.